Thanks for joining us on The World Today. I'm Joke Rogers. Here's what's coming up within the half hour. Iranian protester Afan Soltani to be executed tomorrow. The Khamenei regime says amidst fears, scores of people have died in recent anti-government protests. The European Union says it will be proposing further sanctions on Iranian authorities. Plus, we're asking the question, what's at stake in Iran for US President Donald Trump? The World Today begins right now. Iran is preparing to execute tomorrow Irfan Soltani, one of the anti-government demonstrators. Rights groups who brought this to attention say the residents of Fardis, just west of Tehran, could become the first person to be sentenced to death for participating in protests that have rocked the country over the last 2 weeks. The 26-year-old was arrested at his home just 6 days ago and rushed through the justice system to face the death penalty on Wednesday as the regime steps up its brutal crackdown on dissent. His family was only informed of the decision on Monday and have been refused information about the charges or judicial proceedings. His sister, who is a lawyer, has been blocked from accessing the case file. Well, it's becoming harder to determine the situation on the ground in Iran. The death toll from the protests have been going up this much, we understand. Some sources say as many as 12,000 people may have died. Others say just about 500. One Iranian security official has told international media the death toll could be around 2,000 people, including security personnel. Iran is under a coordinated blackout aimed not only at security control, but at concealing the truth. Internet cuts, crippled communications, media shutdowns, and intimidation of journalists and witnesses point to the goal of preventing a vast and historic crime from being seen. According to news website Iran International, media outlets inside the country have been shut down, and hundreds of national and local newspapers as well. Aside from the Islamic Republic of Iran broadcasting, only a handful of news websites remain active inside the country, and they too operate under censorship and the direct control of security institutions. In the meantime, the European Union Commission President Ursula von der Leyen says the Union will swiftly propose further sanctions on authorities responsible for the repression of anti-government protests in Iran. She posted a statement on X in which she calls the number of casualties in Iran amid anti-government protests horrifying and condemns the excessive use of force and continued restriction of freedom. She says coordinating with her deputy, further sanctions on those responsible for the repression will be swiftly proposed. And staying in Europe, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz says that we are now witnessing the final days and weeks of the Iranian regime as other European countries summon Iran's ambassadors over the increasing violence. But the Iranian foreign minister has responded, saying of all governments, the one in Germany is perhaps the worst place to address human rights. The reason is simple. Its blatant double standards over the past years have obliterated any shred of credibility, adding, do us all a favor, have some shame. Spain's foreign minister has summoned Iran's ambassador to Madrid to express strong repudiation and condemnation of the protest crackdown. Finland's foreign minister also said she would summon Iran's ambassador, writing on X that Iran's regime has shut down the internet to be able to kill and oppress in silence, adding that this will not be tolerated. Let's get some more perspective on this. Joining me now is international affairs expert Dr. Adoye Male. He joins us from our Abuja studios. A pleasure having you on the program.
Yeah, good evening and thanks for having me.
Right. I want to begin with the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, who says that we are in the final days of the regime. Is there any truth in that?
Well, just like the 1979 Iranian Revolution, this protest started since December 28th, and it has been sustained. In fact, it is growing daily. So the Chancellor may not be wrong in saying that this might be the end of the Ayatollah regime in Iran. Don't forget that Iranians have a history of protest and resistance or revolution from the Green Movement and several other protests that have happened in 2022 and so on. So the dimension that this particular protests have taken, cutting across all segments of the society, all the 31 districts of Iran is covered by this protest. And it cut across youth, the elderly, and several other segments of the Iranian society. And so Meds may actually not be wrong in saying, in having that view or that statement. And from the way the regime is panicking and repressing, in your prologue you said some 2,000 people were killed, but according to human rights, Iran human rights, they are talking about 600 or thereabout. So because of the repression, the brutality in which the Iranian regime is resisting, it shows that it is also jittery, and it might be an indication that it is fighting a battle of survival.
And this is what the people want. You've talked about how long the protest has been. 2 weeks, and you just said that it's growing daily. A change of government. Iran has, over the years, clamped down on anti-government protests. And now there are varying figures of the number of casualties. There's international outcry on this. This will not stop the Iranian regime, but the international community cannot stand by and watch what's happening. So what can it do?
Yes, the international community have a responsibility to ensure that when a regime turns its own gun against our own people, a gun that is supposed to be used to defend the people is now turned against the people. And with the rising casualty, the international community definitely, they have an obligation to intervene. And I think that is where the Americans and the European Union and others are looking at watching events keenly, and Donald Trump even threatening to intervene. Some section of the Iranian population are desirous of that intervention because, of course, you know, the regime is very, very brutal and repressive, and with the type of force that they are unleashing on the people, a foreign intervention will give the protesters a lot of succor, and will also try as much as possible to reduce the casualty on the part of the protesters. So the international community anywhere has the responsibility to intervene when a country decides to repress innocent protesters. We have seen countries like America in the past intervening. If America did not intervene in Kosovo, for example, during the Balkan War, the Serbian army would have massacred billions of people in Kosovo, and it was the intervention that averted some of that. So we have seen in international affairs where interventions by either unilaterally or under the auspices of NATO, as we saw in Kosovo, is very desirable in this type of situation, because you cannot allow people to continue to be killed in that magnitude, and the international community will not just fold their arms and allow that to continue to happen.
Right, certainly the international community is not folding its arms. We've seen a lot of comments and reactions from some countries. The EU is proposing sanctions against Iran. Many of the ambassadors have been summoned from the countries where they're stationed. How do you think the EU sanctions will impact on the Iranian government?
By now, Iran should be wary of sanctions. Some of what is leading to this uprising is the debilitating impact of sanctions all over the years. Because of their nuclear programs, because of their sponsorship of terrorist activities, their leadership of the axis of evil, as they want to call it. The Iranian regime has concentrated on propping up terrorist proxy across the world, and the much needed resources that would have been used to develop or to enhance the economy of Iran have been diverted into developing nuclear weapons, missiles, and all kinds of weapons, which is the impact of what we are seeing today. Because basically, what are the Iranians asking for? The Riyadh has fallen so abysmally low that the shopkeepers and others have to come out to start protesting. The economy is definitely in shambles, and so it is the sanctions that are rearing its head that is motivating people in the country to come out to start to protest at this magnitude. The regime have tried to sell a lot of propaganda by saying, oh, it's American influence, it's Trump, it's Israel, it's other external factors that are coming in to mobilize the people. But that is not resonating with the ordinary people, because they are feeling the pinch, or they are bearing the brunt of the economic hardship, and those propaganda is not making any meaning to many of the Iranians. But that is not to say that the regime do not have its support base. The regime has not collapsed after 2 weeks of sustained protest, because the regime certainly also have a sizable number of support, as the case may be, domestically. So we are in to see how it's going to play out at the end of the day. And with the executions of the protesters that is ongoing, it may further inflame, it may further make the issue uncontrollable for the regime.
Right.
But time will tell.
Yes, and another group, or some others that may feel the pinch, as you so rightly say, is countries doing business with Iran. The U.S. president has announced 25% tariff on trade for those countries in their trade with the United States. Do you think this is sustainable?
Well, in the long run, it's not sustainable, but in the short run, it will put a lot of pressure on the regime in Tehran. This is because countries like China, for example, that have been having this trade battle with the U.S. And with the type of goods that they supply to the U.S., this type of tariff increment will also put a lot of pressure on them. Countries like Iran, Pakistan, and so others that are even within the Middle East region. This tariff ban definitely will affect some of their economy. So in the short run, it may, the effect of the increment of tariff is to put more pressure on the government in Tehran, which I think will serve its purpose. But for it to be sustained for a very long time is what I don't think will happen, because many countries do not toy with their economic development, and certainly not with a crumbling regime that is almost being removed, as the case may be in Tehran as we speak. Yes, it is all aimed at tightening the noose on the current regime in Tehran, and also we see how it will go on as the protest intensifies.
Right, and do you think the regime in Tehran is bothered, by all these the protests, the game of numbers and the death toll, the sanctions being proposed by international communities, threats by the United States? Do you think the regime is bothered at all?
There's no doubt, there's no question about the panic in the regime. With its security forces, we read every day, moving in on the side of the protesters, with what we are witnessing, the massive turnout, there's no doubt that the regime is endangered. Don't forget that the Reza Pahlavi was the Shah Pahlavi was also overthrown through a massive uprising, and the Iranians are used to this type of revolution. So with the tenacity in which they are embarking on this protest, I think the regime may be on its way out, and but it depends. It depends on how the regime can survive in the next few weeks, because it's not easy to sustain a protest. I have been a student leader, and I know that sustaining a protest of this magnitude over a long period of time can be very, very difficult. But let's see how it goes. I just hope that the killings will be minimized, and the regime should be able to bow out as quickly as possible so that normalcy can return to Iran. If you see the women and the joy as they protest on the streets, definitely they want freedom. They want economic prosperity for their country. It shows that the foreign policy of the Iranian government have not had the total support of the Iranians. A situation whereby the Iranian government's foreign policy has been very, very disruptive, has been very disruptive to the international system. I think this message by the people of Iran is clear that the regime, its ideology, its modus of operandi do not resonate with the Iranians.
Right. International affairs expert Dr. Adoyi Omale, thank you again for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
And still ahead on the program. Well, we'll possibly continue the conversation on Iran. Plus, we'll also tell you about the returned Tokyo Auto Salon, showcasing the newest technologically advanced and most impressive models for the world's biggest automakers. Welcome back. The U.S. President Donald Trump has cancelled meetings earlier scheduled with Iranian officials, but told protesters help is on its way amid the brutal crackdown by Tehran. He has encouraged protesters to keep up the demonstrations. Instead, Mr. Trump will meet with his senior national security team later today to discuss his options in Iran, following his announcement of a 25% tariff on countries that do business with the country. On Sunday, he said that he was open to talks with the Iranian regime after receiving communication over the weekend. His message 2 days later indicated he no longer believes talks would be fruitful. Mr. Trump has also threatened an attack on the Iranian authorities should he decide on firing a missile into Iran. He will have to decide which targets to strike, either remaining elements of Iran's nuclear program or government buildings in Tehran or other facilities connected to the country's security services. Our Washington correspondent Maria Bird joins us now. Maria, great to speak with you. Why is the U.S. president so interested in what's going on in Iran?
Well, as you know, the Middle East has been an area that the U.S. has been quite interested in, quite involved in quite some time. We were in Iraq for many years. We know that in previous administrations, even prior to what we've seen with this president, Iran has been one of the countries that the U.S. has had relationships with, specifically relationships that have dealt with security challenges. And obviously, we know the vast challenges around natural resources and oil. And so that has continued to be, I think, at the forefront of the conversation conversation. As you've mentioned, the president has said that help is on the way. The president has had interest in Iran for quite some time. We know as a result of what's happened in Venezuela and the U.S. interest there, some of the security details, some of the things that are needed to ensure that the U.S., if they were having to go into Iran, that they are not there and available at this time. And so the president, as you mentioned, has changed very quickly from conversations with the Iranian government to stating that he is now going to work internally with the U.S. And also, as you can see, the protests have broken out all throughout the streets. The president is very concerned about that, and that's kind of what he's been stating is some of the challenge that exists around humanitarian rights, specifically around U.S. interest that obviously have not been. And we know that nuclear weaponry has also been a concern of the United States for quite some time.
Right. He has encouraged the demonstrators to continue. So clearly, he does not like the Iranian regime. Would you say he's hoping for a regime change in Iran or for things to settle amicably?
Definitely for things to settle. The U.S. has not had a large stake in the Iranian economic exchange, and obviously, especially as we look at export and imports. And so I think the president is looking for further conversation with the Iranian government about furthering the business relationships, but also even just the relationships, international affairs and foreign affairs relationships with Iran. We know that they have not necessarily been in alignment with some of the other allies for several years. And so the president at this time has made a very strong stance. And as you mentioned, the tariff piece as well, which we know that the U.S. has been using tariffs since the beginning of his administration as a way to bring people to the table, to further discussions, and to encourage what the U.S. believes are fair and equitable business relationships.
Right, Maria, thanks again. Finally, on the program, Japan's largest domestic car show, Tokyo Auto Salon, returns to Chiba on Friday, showcasing the newest, technologically advanced and most impressive models from the world's biggest automakers. Hundreds of visitors enjoyed the wide array of automobiles, from classic models with their elegant curves to the most modern ones with the cutting-edge design at the Makuhari Convention Center. The brands prepared the unique concepts, aiming to bring about the best and most attractive aspects of their product to customers. Tomoyuki Mori of Mitsubishi Motors Corporation says the idea was to have it be something that could be used anywhere without worrying about scratches or anything like that. It was therefore painted like this and created with the concept of letting people have fun with it in a wild way. Meanwhile, their rival preferred to focus more on novelty than practicality in its DRZ4S. Wakai of Suzuki Motor Corporation says the design was created based on the idea that if Suzuki's model were to go into the world of Monster Hunter Wilds, the people would surely paint it like this. With 385 manufacturers presenting over 800 customized vehicles, event organizers expected about 300,000 people to attend the show. Well, that's our show today. Thank you for watching. I'm Joke Rogers.